7, 8 years ago. You have to see the massive investment in software parks. Shanghai alone has 2 or 3. Southeast has about 6, 7 parks, each one 250 to 300 companies. We are kidding ourselves that Chinese will not be in software industry. In fact, China market alone, which I have analyzed, by year 2000, it's less than 20, will be $100 billion domestic consumption. And the largest gainer right now will be IBM. IBM has invested heavily ahead of the curve, just like they did with Japan market after World War II, and they're going to take the Chinese share. Accenture may dabble into that one. And we think that in the bilateral understanding, they will then ramp up the Indian software companies big way. The problem with India and China is very, very strange. There are very few Indians who trust Chinese. Asymmetry of trust is massive. From taxi driver, when you talk to them, to the intellectuals, to the anybody. The opposite is true. In China, they just love Indians. I meet some very senior Chinese, either political advisors or professors or military even, and once they know I'm from India, they are talking about once they know I'm from India, they open up completely. I've never seen such asymmetry of two countries in trust. Either both mistrust each other, both like each other, but this asymmetry is absolutely mind-boggling. To equalize that, which is what this government will do, is to allow lots of Indians to go to China. All government bureaucrats are going to China. I'm training Indian managing directors, chief executives of public sectors. We have a 1-week program in Shanghai, and we take them to Shanghai factories, Shanghai Electric, for example, who is a major supplier to a lot of power companies. And they are absolutely mind-boggling. We get a red carpet treatment, showing us everything because they are very interested. And so it's very different. So and then Chinese will have a lot of ordinary Chinese come as tourists to India. It's like a people-to-people engagement where the trust begins to build over each other by and large. So I think Indian software industry will benefit. Right now, Chinese are using Huawei technologies, which has become world-class, obviously. Have 5,000 engineers in Bangalore, and they use Bangalore as an Indian software company. Think about that one. And work will be shifted to China. At Wipro, where I'm on the board, we were surprised how productive Chinese software guys are. Don't underestimate Chinese, please, which is one of the biggest problems with this country. This country is in a huge denial stage about China.
So, but the worldwide perception is that Chinese do not have the ability to pick up this. I mean, this is just a perception that is existing today. Chinese are good in Chinese but not in English. So that is preventing them from
Very good point.
conquering the world.
And Chinese understood that. So the Chinese just mandated, I think 3 years ago, every grade school Chinese kid will learn English compulsorily. In 10, 15 years, Chinese will be speaking, every one of them, fluent English more than most Indians. Are you with me? Indians still have a huge regional language. Like in Gujarat, they didn't invest in the English language, so they speak mostly Gujarati, learn in Gujarati, right? They know how to read and write, but they're not conversant like we are right now, for example. Massive setback of state of Gujarat, my view. Software in the south grew because they had only English as the main language in many ways, okay? Which is interesting. Chinese will equalize that in about 10, 12 years. That's all it takes, by policy. They do everything by policy, which is national execution. So that's clearly one. So I don't underestimate from that viewpoint, by and large. In fact, I have been researching right now whether Silicon Valley will become Shanghai Valley. Have you seen the amount of semiconductors industry from Taiwan moving into Shanghai? The scale is mind-boggling, okay? And so it seems like Chinese are gaining advantage quite a lot. And the latest one I found is that the Chinese now are like number 3 in R&D investment. Japan is number 2, we are number 1. We are significantly number one. But the Chinese productivity of R&D, ours is only 20%. 80% we are strictly creating knowledge which is not commercializable. Chinese are about 3 times more productive. For $1 of R&D investment, what they come out as a commercial output is about 3 times more than the Americans. And more Chinese patents will be worldwide. Please remember that too. In all 5 major nations where you file your patents, you will see Chinese putting more and more patents because they would like to protect their assets now. And eventually they will change their patent policy as India did just to be part of the world economy. I think is going to happen. So it's a matter of time. I mean, I'm giving you deliberately the other extreme viewpoint because we have such a negative view of China. I want to counterbalance that, So yes.
So maybe we should just have maybe the
last question.
Because Professor Sheth has to go back to San Francisco, and we want to be respectful of his time.
Sir, I had a quick question on at a microeconomy level. I know we'll be talking more on the macro level, but
yes.
When we start looking at individual enterprises and start comparing them enterprises here versus China, I mean the perception at least is that they tend to mimic a lot of products here and then they produce at a cheaper rate. So
yes.
In such cases, what's the strategy? I mean, obviously, if someone's going to get the same quality of product at a cheaper price, they would prefer that. So what's the strategy that companies here or organizations here are adopting to, in their worldwide reach out, to ensure that their margins are protected, their volumes are protected, and what is it that they're doing right now versus what is they should actually be doing?
They're doing 3 things primarily. The first one is that they have shifted their own R&D or production over there. In fact, Chinese economy grew in manufacturing, not producing their own branded products, but for the world brands to be made there. Because they had a cheap labor, they had a hardworking labor, policies were lenient about employee rights, and there were not too many rights, etc. And so they basically used where the resource was, right? Chinese are now creating their own brands, which will go global very quickly. Both consumer products, surprisingly, China today is able to deliver all qualities, not just low quality. And Chinese by policy will definitely discourage low quality products like Japan did. Okay? Japan export policy simply said low quality is not acceptable from made in Japan. Chinese will do this. So Chinese brands made in China will become very respectable, like made in Japan. Or we used to laugh at Korean brands. Samsung, nobody laughs at today. Same thing is going to happen, right? So American corporations have to participate there by shifting their manufacturing there. Or sourcing from that, as Apple does, for example. A lot of sourcing is from that part. Still keeping your intellectual property rights the way you can do it. Right? That's clearly one. Second one is that if China is a market, you must participate, which our automobile guys learned finally. GM, one of the largest profit centers, is now China, not America. Buick car sells enormously well with good margins over there. Here, they have to discount that heavily, right? Starbucks is growing, McDonald's is growing, Coca-Cola's whole future lies with the China market and to some extent India market in the future. Like the America 100 years ago, they started here, now it's the China engine primarily. So they are saying, all right, so if you take our S&P 500 companies, the top about 100 companies, all are performing financially better here with the China market as their growth and profitable engine. So if China has a large domestic market, then you participate in that market also. Like somebody just mentioned that Intel's largest PC market now is China, competing with Lenovo, which is already obviously number 1, right? Interestingly. So my view is that at one time Intel never thought they needed, Dell missed that whole opportunity, both in India to some extent as well as over there. But these are 2 markets in consumer products or in enterprise, the low-end kind of a thing by and large, which is fascinating. So you have to participate in, that's the second thing. The third thing is to license your technology. I'm a very strong believer in licensing, and I'll tell you, I did advising in 3 companies on that in this country. Texas Instruments. When you have $600 million R&D on your balance sheet and you are earning 1.4 billion annual royalty, even the top management didn't know this themselves, which is interesting. Jerry Jenkins was the chairman, I remember. It was fascinating. I said, show me a manufacturing where you can earn those returns. So we got all the TI fellows, we co-opted them. We are very powerful people. They're all top scientists. We did sessions after sessions, 14, 15 sessions worldwide, to convince within the company that manufacturing is not necessary. So we divested all manufacturing. And then we bet on the future, because I was a very strong believer at that time, working in the Bell Labs, that the future is not the PC for volume, but the cell phones. So we kept the DSP chips. And Nokia was our first account there, right, by and large. So we became primarily a technology company. These guys had voice recognition technology, government funded, where they were getting commercial, licensing. So I'm a very strong advocate of licensing. As soon as you invent technology, there is no way you can protect it, license the world and make money on licensing. Same advice we give to Hughes Corporation for DirecTV. Don't go into manufacturing, license it to Thomson Electronics, for example, Matsushita, Panasonic brand. Let them manufacture, let them sell it, let them commoditize, but you make money on the DirecTV service primarily. You are a technology and a service company essentially. Worked very, very well. Motorola, we tried to do the same thing. Pretty much. Motorola didn't work as well. We had to exit the semiconductor business completely. Do you know that there is not a really good semiconductor company out of those old guards? TI has lost semiconductors. Motorola lost semiconductors. Alcatel, Lucent lost semiconductors. They all used to have semiconductor, but I used to consult them. It's painful to see, other than Intel, there's not real survivor in semiconductors. It's all Taiwan guys now. They're all moving to Shanghai.
So is the innovation also happening there now?
Yeah, big time. Surprisingly, if you talk to AT&T, a wireless head, Ralph De La Vega, he had gone to the Beijing Olympics, which was a great showcase, went to Huawei, and he says, I'm blown away how capable Huawei Technologies is. He says, in one location, 30,000 engineers, all very smart. He has never seen any other place in the world, he's saying. So they have come from the emerging markets, China market.